Hello, guys. Welcome to ASM Education. This is the second part of the book, The McKinsey Way. I hope you all have gone through the first video, and I hope these videos are adding some value to your understanding of how consultancy works. And maybe if you're a guy who has his own business, maybe this is adding and giving you some new insights on how to run your business, on how to strategically think about the problems. So now we'll move on to the second chapter. This is a big and a very important chapter, so maybe I'll cover this in two videos. Let's see. So the second chapter talks about developing an approach to how to solve business problems, how to tackle them. So the author says that no two business problems are identical. You must figure out how to approach each problem in order to devise the best solution for it. Even if there are two businesses which have exactly the same problem, the solution to the problem for both the businesses will be different. So that's why he's saying no two business problems are identical. So now let's move on to the step by step how the author has developed his approach. So the first thing he says that the problem is not always the problem. What will happen is your senior will come and give you a problem, and he'll give you a client and tell you to find a solution, make a IH and a lot of other things. So the author says, but before you go rushing off in any particular direction, make sure you're solving the right problem. So what does he mean? The problem is not always the problem, and you make sure you're looking after the right problem. What the author compares this to is medicine. He says like how a patient comes to a doctor's office, he gives his symptoms, and then he also says that, oh doctor, I think maybe I have the flu. Then the doctor analyzes his symptoms, asks the patient a few probing questions, and then the doctor makes his final diagnosis. This could be the same as what the patient has said, that maybe he has a flu, or maybe it could be a cold, or maybe it could be something more serious, or something could be nothing. So the author has compared business problems to the same as these medical problems that a patient has. So he's compared your client to a patient and the firm as the doctor. Sometimes problems would come in extremely vague formulations, but you still have to look after them, and you have to find out the exact problem. The only way, the author says, the only way to figure out if the problem you have been given is the real problem is to dig deeper. Dig deeper. What does he mean by dig deeper? He says get the facts, ask questions, poke around it. And he also says that it doesn't usually take a long time to figure out whether the problem is the right problem. But he also says that if you do not do this exercise, then eventually later on you will spend much more time than the time you are investing right now. So he says then the time you take upfront will be more than make up for itself in time you if you sorry and the time you take up front will more than make up for itself in time you don't waste further down the line. What do you do when you're convinced that you're working on the wrong problem? So if you know that you're working on the wrong problem, what are you supposed to do? So when a doctor thinks that his patient's minor symptoms may mask something more sinister, something more serious, he will tell his patient that I can treat your headache, but I think it's a symptom of something else, and it will be more helpful that it'll be more beneficial to you if I do more tests and find out what the actual problem is. So similarly, if you should tell your client that, Mr. Client, you asked me to look at the problem X, but the real impact on our performance will come if we solve problem Y. Now, if you want, I can solve problem X and go away, but I think it's in your interest, it's in the interest of your business if I focus on Y. So this was part one of the second chapter. This was the problem is not always the problem. So next the author says that don't reinvent the wheel. Now we'll see what does he mean by this. So what he says is most business problems resemble each other more than they differ. One second. Sometime back, 2 pages back, the author said that each business problem is different. Now he's saying that most business problems resemble each other more than they differ. Correct. He is still not saying that they are the same, but he says that they are similar, they resemble each other. So what he's saying that with a small number of business problem solving techniques, you can answer broad range of questions. The techniques may be somewhere in your organization, either written down or in the heads of your colleagues. So you have to look for them. He says that McKinsey has developed a number of problem solving methods and gives them some fancy names. Analysis of value added, business process redesign, product market scan, etc, etc. These techniques are immensely powerful. They allow consultants from McKinsey to fit the raw data. So the raw data, the basic information that they have on their desks when the files come to them, they convert that data into a coherent framework and this gives them more insights into the problem that the client is facing, the nature of the problem. Now, once this framework is ready, the consultant can focus on the thinking of the drivers of the problem and then start working towards a solution. So basically, it helps creating a map. Again, it helps creating a roadmap, uh, because they can focus on the drivers of the problem. Everything fits into place. So just he has given an example. McKinsey used an analytical framework called forces at work. He says that it was very valuable at the beginning of an engagement to look at the external pressures on the client. They used to focus on identifying the client suppliers, the customers, the competitors, and the possible substitute products. Then they listed out all the changes that were occurring in each of the four categories, what impact, positive or negative, that these would have on their client. Also, then they used to focus on the internal changes that are affecting the client and the industry in which the client operates. So then the author says that whatever business you are in, this framework will not only help you build a snapshot of your competitive environment, but help you develop a view of how that environment might change. So if you're a consultant, it is very important for you to understand the business environment that you're in, the competition, the nature of the industry. So understanding that is of importance. But as a consultant, you are giving consultancy so that your client is more prepared for the future. So you have to also consider what trends are happening in the industry and how the industry may shape up in the next few years. That is why doing this exercise is of paramount importance. So now this is the part 2 also done. Now the author comes to part 3. He says, but every client is unique. One second. He said, don't reinvent the wheel. Most business problems resemble each other. Yes, most business problems resemble each other, but every client is unique. So many similarities between business problems does not mean that the similar problems have similar solutions. So if two of your clients are facing the same business problem, that does not mean that they will have the same or similar solutions. He just uses a metaphor and says that if all you have is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. So you have to be very careful when you are giving suggestions. So critics of McKinsey and other consultancy firms say that the firm bases its solution on the most current management fact. So McKinsey keeps on building new and new models on how to face business problems, and the critics say that they use the newest model, whether irrespective of whether it is right or not. But the author says that at McKinsey, this is untrue. Maybe it might be true for other consultancy firm. They said that the fact-based analysis is practiced by McKinsey and requires hard proof before any recommendations are made to the client. So before any recommendations are made, hard facts have to be present. People think that the firm and the management consultants in general have a pre-canned answer, that they know that this is going to be the answer, but this is not the case with McKinsey. If it would have been, then McKinsey wouldn't have been the most successful strategy firm ever. The tools may be same from problem to problem, but you still have to apply them. So maybe just for example, maybe use Excel for 10 other things, but 10 things like maybe your expenses, your incomes, maybe for balance sheet, P&L, but you're using it for different things. Maybe the tool is the same, but the outcome is different. So he says that in most of the whenever there's a pricing issue, more 8 out of 10 times the answer is increase the price. But the that feeling that after a lot of experience you will get. But if you do all the fact-based analysis, demand curves, break even, then you will actually know what the recommendation is. Mostly it will be that the prices should be increased. But if you, without doing this exercise, you say that the prices should be increased and actually the prices should be decreased, then you will be in trouble. So the author says, be careful about blindly trusting your gut. As you gain experience in business, as you see and solve more and more problems, you get a fair idea of what works in your industry and what doesn't. So then he compares how a McKinsey alumnus and what's the benefit of having a McKinsey in your businesses. He says that a manager with a lot of business experience will maybe reach to the same conclusions as McKinsey does, and maybe in a shorter time with less expense and without disrupting the business. But but he says that most executives are not that good. Many people may try to do so, but they will not be. Only the best executives might be able to do so. Also, he says that McKinsey has a very structured approach. They focus intently on the problem. They have time to invest in it, and that's why they produce a robust solution that even the best executives might not be able to do so. And why? Because these executives do not have the time. They have a lot of other things that they have to do. So even though your initial instinct may be and probably is right, take enough time to verify your gut with facts. Maybe you feel that the prices should be increased, but wait, look at all the facts and then make any recommendation. Now moving on to the next part. He says don't make the facts fit your solution. So what happens is a lot of times you have your initial hypothesis, and what you start believing that that hypothesis is correct. So the problem solving process becomes actually a process of proving the IH, and that is wrong. Keep an open and flexible mind. If your IH is wrong, accept it. So he gives an example of how for an insurance company, one of the engagement managers, he thought that the problem was revenue leakage, and he told his team to find revenue leakages in fire insurance for the past 3 years. So the team worked very hard. They and then they found out that the leakages were not as much as in the fire insurance. Now what an ideal McKinseyite should have done was to go back to the IH and consider whether there are any other hypotheses that were possible. But this guy, he said, okay, if there's no leakage in fire insurance, go to land insurance, go to marine insurance, and look at them. So the team started going through all these things. Again, there was not much leakages, and then this hypothesis failed. So here, what the moral of the story that the author is trying to bring about is that no matter how brilliant, insightful, and original you may feel your initial hypothesis is, you should always be prepared to accept that the facts may prove you wrong. If they do, just adjust to the facts. Okay? Do not think that your hypothesis, your IH, is the correct IH. The McKinsey way is to take the occasional step back from the continual grind and ask yourself what you have learned over the past week or 2 weeks. So what he's saying that after a week, after 2 weeks, just sit back, relax, and just summarize what you've done. See whether this supports your IH or it rejects your IH. If it supports, then you can go ahead. If it rejects, then see what changes to your IH have to be made. He says that reality checks now and then could save you from chasing down blind alleys. And when you chase down blind alleys, you're wasting your resources, you're risking your firm's reputation. And if you are actually a businessman who's doing this, then you are wasting your time, and you're wasting out. There'll be a lot of opportunity cost involved in it.